She opens her account and sees almost 1 million francs, 992,000 to be precise. And yet she can no longer afford piano lessons. She cannot pay her rent without fear. At night, her heart races so violently, she is convinced she is having a heart attack. She ends up in a hospital scanner, certain her body is failing her. The money is right there on the screen, and she cannot reach a single franc of it. So how does a woman with nearly 1 million francs end up living in fear of her own bills? That is the question I want to answer, because the answer is one of the most dangerous misunderstandings in private wealth, and it can happen to anyone who believes that money in Switzerland is automatically safe money. This case was investigated and broadcast by Kassensturz, the consumer affairs program of Swiss public television. I have linked the original report below this video, so you can watch it for yourself. Everything I describe comes from that public broadcast, nothing from any client of mine. And you will notice I name no one, not the firm, not the manager. The report is there for anyone who wants the names. My interest is not the individuals. It is the lesson every serious investor can take from what happened to her. Before her retirement, this woman inherited several 100,000 francs. Not a fortune for speculation. It was meant to do one quiet thing: carry her safely through the rest of her life. She knew her pension would be small. She knew the state pension alone would never be enough. So this inheritance was, quite simply, everything she had. She was, by her own account, inexperienced in financial matters, and so she did what most reasonable people do. She looked for an expert. In 2014, she placed her trust and her money with a licensed Swiss wealth manager, a regulated firm, a professional presentation, the promise of something safe and sensible. She was very clear about what she needed. Security came first. She described herself as risk-averse, and the record confirms it. And she needed one practical thing above all else: regular access to her own money, every single month. For years it worked. Around 4,600 francs arrived each month for her living expenses. A modest, predictable life, exactly what she had asked for. Then in September 2023, the payments simply stopped. When she called to ask why, she did not get a clear answer. She was told that something wasn't quite right. She reminded them what they already knew, that she needed that money to live. The reassurances came easily. We'll look into it. We'll sort it out next week. For a few months, they sent what they called advances. Then even those stopped. And finally, on the telephone, she was told there was nothing more they could do for her. She would have to manage on her own. She hung up the phone, she says, and broke down completely. Now here is the part that defies belief. When she looked at her statement, the money was still there. Almost 1 million francs. It had not been stolen. It had not obviously been gambled away. It was simply frozen, out of reach, for 1.5 years. Why? Because nearly every franc she owned had been placed into one single fund. Not a diversified portfolio, one structure. And when that one fund ran into a liquidity problem and could no longer pay investors out, her entire life savings were locked behind it overnight. This is the first lesson, and it is the one almost everyone gets wrong. Wealth on paper is not the same as wealth you can use. A statement shows you a number. It doesn't tell you whether you can actually sell, withdraw, and hold that money in your hand the day you need it. For a retiree who has to eat every month, that gap is not a technical footnote. It is the whole story, and it becomes more uncomfortable. The firm managing her money was also tied to the management of the very fund her money was sitting in. The people advising her and the people running the product were not at arm's length. That is exactly the situation where an investor should stop and ask one simple question: who actually benefits from where my money is being sent? There is one detail I find almost hard to repeat. As things were already going wrong, she was reportedly encouraged to put even more money into the same fund. Think about that for a moment. The structure was already failing, and the suggestion was to deepen her exposure to it. She was not imagining the danger. A retired lawyer who stood by her, an industry ombudsman, and a senior investment expert all came to the same conclusion. The strategy that was actually used deviated gravely from the conservative one she had agreed to. The ombudsman's position was that her losses should be made good by the firm. The regulator has been informed and is investigating. But look at where she stands. Even with all of that on her side, her money is blocked. To fight for it, she would have to go to court, and court costs money she cannot access, because the money is the very thing that is frozen. She is trapped inside her own savings. And this is the real lesson for every international investor watching. The danger here was never Switzerland. Switzerland remains one of the finest places on earth to protect and structure serious wealth. The danger was entering that system on trust alone. A respected name, a valid license, a confident presentation, and skipping the one step that actually protects you, because a license only tells you a firm is permitted to operate. It does not tell you that a particular investment is suitable for your life. It does not guarantee you can reach your money. It does not remove a conflict of interest. And it does not replace someone independent reading the documents before you sign them. That is the entire difference between this woman's story and a safe one. Not luck, not the size of the fortune. One honest, independent review before the money moved. So, before you ever transfer substantial assets to any bank or wealth manager, ask just 3 things. Can I actually access this money the day I need it? Is it truly diversified, or is everything resting on one structure? And has someone independent, who earns nothing from the product, reviewed it before I sign? If you cannot answer those 3 with confidence, you are not making a decision. You are placing a bet on trust. And trust, as this case shows so painfully, is not a protection strategy. At Caputo and Partners, this is precisely the work we do for international clients. Before you commit your wealth, we examine the structure, the contracts, the custody, the liquidity, and the real risks. And we tell you honestly whether the arrangement protects you or quietly exposes you. Because the right moment to ask these questions is not after your money is frozen. By then, it is lawyers, litigation, and years of waiting. The right moment is before you sign. When your wealth represents decades of work and the security of your family, hope is not a plan. Your assets deserve more than hope. They deserve a fortress.